very interesting to see how much can change in a year when we'll be here again in a year's time. And I'm delighted to welcome Lyubov Guk, Peter Garraghan, and Isabella Yamamoto to the stage. We're going to be talking about the rapid pace of change, and in particular with regards to AI, how quickly things are changing and how founders can really protect that sense of resilience and stability that allows them to plow forward with their vision. So first, Peter, as the CEO of Mindgard, a spin-out from Lancaster University that focuses on LLM cybersecurity. I'm sure that you're very experienced in kind of having to anticipate what's coming next as all of these threats are changing. Could you tell us a little bit about Mindgard's journey and how it evolved from that small university spin-out to what it is today?
Happy to do so. So I'm a university professor at Lancaster, and about 10 years ago, I remember thinking when the deep neural network, which underpins a lot of the modern AI, came out. This is about language and image. I remember thinking, I'm not so sure if the current security tools actually work against deep neural networks. I wanted to make sure, though, so myself and the scientists spent a lot of time investigating these problems. 5 years went by, found lots of problems, and this is just before the transformer came out, which is when people did ChatGPT, and realized this would be a huge problem. Every organization, every person, every device, every population will be using this type of AI in their systems. I said, make a company. What I really care about is actually making change, and there's some really great things about AI, but also it's still software. Software has vulnerabilities and security threats, whether they're societal issues or just someone's misconfigured something and leaked data in the system. We built this company so we can actually allow people to adopt AI and treat it like any other software, keep it secure, keep it safe, and people can reap the benefits from doing so.
And Lyubov, you're a founding partner at Blue Lake VC, which supports immigrant founders with a global vision. Tell us a little bit about your journey to founding Blue Lake and the journey that the company has been on since then.
Sure, yeah, and it's been a journey indeed, because I, as well as my co-founder, we came into this industry with almost zero experience, which is probably not the easiest way to break into VC space, but it is what it is. And it all started probably about 7-8 years ago, where when both of us, we were organizing startup roadshows, bringing international founders to London, where they were able to pitch in front of potential investors or clients. So that's how it all started, almost as a hobby, to be honest with you. And this is where we identified gap/opportunity with international founders coming to London or to UK in general and facing very, very common problems with lack of network, lack of understanding how the market actually works, lack of social capital in general, so that prevents them from finding first investments or first clients or first team members maybe. So we launched Blue Lake to address this gap, and the initial concept of Blue Lake was Startup Accelerator, right before the pandemic started. So we ran a couple of programs quite successfully, but then due to COVID, we had to put this on hold. And we switched to investment side of things, and we made a couple of angel investments between David, my co-founder, and myself. So that was another stage of Blue Lake, and then we started running Angel Syndicate. So that basically means that a couple of people from our network joined us, and we started doing deal-by-deal investments quite successfully as well. And after this, so now we're at the stage where we're launching our first fund, which is really, really exciting journey again. But yeah, and everything what we've been doing so far, the main thesis is immigrant founders, because it's something we deeply believe in. And some of the companies we mentioned during previous panels, like Revolut, Monzo, Deliveroo, all of them were founded by immigrants, as well as 40% of all unicorns in the UK. So we just want to find them first. That's pretty much the idea.
Congratulations on launching the fund. I'm so excited to dig into a little bit into the traits that maybe international founders have that might lend itself to resilience. I think that's something that's really exciting about this panel is that you all come from such different backgrounds, so we can kind of gather different perspectives on how you can navigate a changing landscape. Bella, you're a principal at Visionaries VC. Tell us about your investment thesis. I know that you specialize particularly in seed and pre-seed, early stage founders. Tell us about about how you were advising those founders?
Yeah, no, good question. So when we started our fund, I think we're one of Europe's first founder and operator-led funds. So for us, it sort of manifests in two ways. I think firstly, on the investment side of the table, all of us have founded companies or operated meaningfully at one. The other way was when we were constructing our fund, typically VCs will raise from institutional investors, so kind of university, endowments, pension funds. We actually heavily indexed our fundraise on former founders, and we bucket them into two groups. We have some 35 plus unicorn founders on the digital side of the table. So you can think of sort of Andrew from Miro, Daniel Dines from UiPath, the Flixbus founders, the HelloFresh founders, so sort of that first wave of European success stories, some of whom we backed as a VC, they've become our LPs. And yeah, again, just important to foster community amongst those people, because unlike in the States, which is one country, Europe is fragmented, and we lose some of those learnings. The other side of the table, to your point on investment thesis, is what we call the old economy. In Germany, they have a word, the Mittelstand, which refers to sort of the SMEs, not very tech forward, sort of family-run businesses that I think in tech are often a little bit overlooked. Our experience working with them, because we work with them very closely, is that they are very interested in modernizing. They just often don't really know how to do it. And so they've backed us just as a way to keep a tempo on what's happening in tech. And so we kind of connect these two worlds that we really think should be speaking more. And to be kind of blunt, if you're backing B2B businesses, which is our investment thesis, they often want to sell into that old economy. And so I think just being very close to sort of the buyers and the people that really are, Europe's GDP is incredibly important. And, we basically get very excited about technology that transforms some of those old industries. And so, at the moment, for example, we're quite excited about a lot of the revolution in tech that's happening in sort of blue-collar workforce management, which is a huge part of the economy. And yeah, we've seen some really exciting automations in technology and just the way that people hire, the way that they deploy that capital, the way that they assess that talent. And so, yeah, it's just one example, but to say, yeah, very much B2B focused, excited about technology that revolutionizes large parts of the economy.
That's so interesting. So it's on the same theme, really, of kind of building these networks and kind of strengthening that community. I have to dig into that and ask, what kind of relationship do you have with those LPs who've obviously been founders and been in that situation? Do they then advise you? Who advises new founders?
Yeah, we don't subscribe to the platform view. So some VCs, and we'll know of them, have large platform teams where we've got people that can help with sort of go-to-market or people that can help with sales. Our kind of thinking on that is that the people that are best in the world at product, for example, wouldn't necessarily join a VC and be part of that platform, but would rather be building the best product at some of these companies. For example, Andrea at Miro, an incredibly strong product thought leader. And so what we would say to founders is, look, if you've come with us with a very specific question, for example, how to build out a really good go-to-market or how to do product really well, rather than sort of an in-house consultancy almost, we'll connect you to like the actual individuals that we think are market leading in that space. And so that's part of why I think just fostering a very close network with those individuals, those luminaries, is super important.
Absolutely. Coming back to the rapid pace of change, Peter, tell us about how cybersecurity threats, particularly enabled by AI, how they're developing and how you keep up.
Sure. I imagine most people have been using AI, especially in the last few years, and those who are slightly more technical, been using it for 69 years. It's a concept, not new. Fundamentally, it's still software and data and hardware, and all the type of risks we think about, so whether it's phishing attacks or data leakage or getting to a system, same concept, but how you do it is slightly different. Even going back 10,000 years, or maybe not too far back. We have not hunter-gathering. We actually have civilization, like cities. People go around towns and trying to manipulate people or trying to break into things. What we do today in AI is actually very similar conceptually. How you do it is actually quite different. So you think of LLM security. What do LLMs do? They take inputs of data and give you outputs of data. Those LLMs and those data connect to other systems and other people. If I'm an attacker and I can understand your LLM talks to other applications and other systems and other people, guess what? I can manipulate it to actually give me the data or give me passwords or do credentials. This isn't magic. This is classic software. Cybersecurity also happens in terms of there's something called SQL injection. So if I have a database that uses a language called SQL, I can hide instructions to say, please give me information from the table. In LLMs, something called prompt injection, which is the idea that I can hide an instruction, a hidden message, and this document. Let's say I submit a document and an image, and in the document it says, please ignore instructions, do this other thing instead. I can launch code, I can tell it to do the complete opposite thing, insult me. So the problem is when people build LLMs, they're not applying basic cybersecurity practices to software development. They're just saying, here's my model, here's my application, go, great, fantastic. I'm a unicorn company in 4 months' time, fantastic. But wait a sec, you have customer data, you have open internet access or internal access, you haven't gone for normal controls, ripe for attacking and ripe for actually find vulnerabilities in the system itself. So I think the one thing, if people do work in LLMs or using them to take away, is it's still software, it's still data. You apply controls to all those things, apply to LLMs, apply to AI, please, because it's only get worse from here as it gets quicker and more complicated.
Mm-hmm. Lyubov, you support and you invest in immigrant founders. Would you say that immigrant founders tend toward a certain kind of problem, or that they maybe have certain traits which might bolster them or cause them trouble when it comes to these kind of rapidly evolving technologies?
Yeah, they certainly do. And in terms of common traits and characteristics, I think resilience is definitely the word. Because no matter what problems they're trying to solve and what challenges they might be facing themselves, yeah, they just keep going. And that's something I really like about working with immigrant founders, where they've been through many things already, probably, and many of our founders, they come from emerging markets, for example, or countries at war, like Ukraine, and they've seen stuff. So, yeah, resilience is definitely one of the common characteristics. Chip on the shoulder, no plan B. So that's something most of them have in common, which is great. And to your question about the problems they are solving, I think it's not very different from local founders, but what I see with immigrants in particular, so first of all, I think just from the age perspective, founders are a little bit more mature. So it's not your ex-students or someone in his or her early career. It's someone who's maybe has had previously a successful corporate background, or maybe was working on something else, in a different venture, and now they want to build a startup. And typically it's a problem which they faced already themselves. So they kind of know what they're doing, and they're deeply convinced that there is a problem, because again, they may have first-hand experience with this problem and they want to solve it. So yeah, I think these are key thoughts. I don't know if I answered your question.
No, I think you have. When it comes to these kind of like rapidly evolving technologies, I know it sounds like Peter kind of has interpreted a sense of stability from the fact that there are patterns within how these things change. Yeah. Do you find that with your founders that they're coming to you with issues of like saying that there is so much happening that it's difficult to keep up, or maybe changes within the VC market as they're trying to raise, that the hype cycle is constantly moving on to something else, or can they claim some stability as well?
Yeah, I think we have different cases in our portfolio where, yeah, some of the founders, again, as I mentioned, they just keep building no matter what's going on, be it the world of technologies or just macro situation, if I can put it this way. Some of the companies are pivoting as we speak, just because, yeah, the technologies they've been using maybe not relevant anymore, and there is something else, something new on the market, and something that works much better than they used before, which is also fine. And we're dealing with early stage, so it's inevitable that things are changing for them anyway. But now, yeah, with the rise of new technologies and stuff, it's becoming more and more interesting, and the pace is more faster, I guess, as well.
Mm-hmm. Isabella, you can offer us another VC's perspective on that. Do you find that the criteria that you use to evaluate early stage startups is changing? And do you think that, like, what kind of time frame do you think in now?
Yeah, I'd say that the sort of diligence timeline that you'd get, typically it's sort of 10 to 14 days, but for some deals, because they go so fast, that timeline is compressed. So that can be quite difficult. I think it's harder to assess because we see so many more companies that show really interesting traction very early on, which is exciting because I think they're finding tech where there's real pull, and so therefore you can see quick traction. I think what investors are starting to do more now is look at metrics like retention, right? Because you can often build a product that can work well on the surface, but when you roll it out and it's enterprise ready, sometimes it isn't, and then there can be holes, and then there are issues with retention. And so I think just the way in the metrics that we're looking at is shifting a little bit. But the core thing that we look at, again, as a pre-seed investor, I mean, the last deal that I did was with a founder that doesn't even have an idea yet. He's still ideating. We've been working closely for 10 months. And there, really, it was just a founder bet. And I know that founders, it must feel a little frustrating when people say it's a gut feel or a founder bet. But, you know, again, in our portfolio, our founders pivot 2 to 3 times before they find product market fit. And so they can come to you with an idea and say, this is what I'm pitching. But our experience is that that's probably going to change. And so who you're backing in that scenario is the individual. And so in our diligence, founders often feel quite, they're quite interested in the fact that we spend so much time with them sort of in person. We always fly to spend time in person. We spend most of our time doing reference checks. We go very deep in sort of one-on-ones, almost sort of to understand their motivation and their psyche. Again, we sort of share as well. It's a two-way dialogue. So that's really where a lot of our time is spent, as opposed to just sort of exactly what that idea is. Of course, we look at it, but at pre-seed, really, it is about the individual. And so that hasn't changed for us.
Yeah, same here.
You're nodding. We do have to move on to the next question, but I have to ask it. Do you see like a lot of pivots with these early stage founders?
Yeah, definitely. But it's fine. I think it's always been like that. I don't think that anything changed over the past few years or something. And I can just echo what Isabella just said, that at early stage, yeah, AI is just technology, right? To your point as well. And at the end of the day, it's about the team and who is building this, who's trying to solve the particular problem on the market, and be it AI or something else, we don't care too much, to be honest with you. And yes, they may pivot and they may decide to approach this problem from a slightly different angle, which is still fine. But I guess our bet is that the team will probably stay, no matter how their product look like or how they are trying to solve it, to solve the problem. So it's very much founders-focused approach rather than focus on particular technology or particular instrument.
I suppose if you have the right systems in place, then they can be like widely applicable.
Yeah.
Okay, now I'm interested to put this to you. On the panel yesterday, we were speaking about AI, and I asked about this dreaded phrase, AI bubble, and whether or not it's going to burst. And Tommy Sadlin, one of the VCs, he said that there is certainly an LLM bubble, in his opinion, and that LLMs might kind of decrease and go out of fashion, but allegedly more applicable forms of AI will endure and will continue to raise money, and they'll surge ahead in the fundraising market. I wanted to quickly get each of your takes on this as specialists in B2B SaaS and see if you think it holds up. Peter, can I start with you?
Yeah, AI will outlive LLMs. The white LLMs, they're fancy autocompleters with transformers. What's an agent? It's a software agent with a neural network inside it. Evolution, new naming of the technology. The example I give people is when a new technology comes out, there's a lot of excitement and the lure and say, it can do everything. Every use case is fantastic. The world's my oyster. When I give it like a sieve, which is, it's all in the sieve, I adjust a little bit, a lot of things fall out. But what remains tend to be very fantastic use cases. So for LLMs, what's it good at? We know it's good for supporting for code generation, for musing, not actually building code. Please don't do that. It's not that good just yet. It's good for document summarization and collating loads of documents to give it to transcript. I use it quite often for my meetings. Instead of me trying to do it manually, I have an LLM to do it for me. It's good for collecting loads of security logs and me to collate the information together. So those use cases are few and far between, but they're super valuable in that space. And this is not an LLM problem. So the problem right now is everyone's saying LLMs can do absolutely everything, but they're not built this way. They are text completers that try to look in relationships between text, but they can't do other stuff. There are other AI that does image, and again, the idea of an agent is uses an LLM in most cases, but then it uses other models too, and it do just have instructions. And even beyond agents, you're going to have other type of AI come in the future. So, and it happens same again. Everyone will claim to do everything, and hand up, you do a bit of shaking, and maybe 4 or 5, maybe 6 new use cases come out, and those will be super valuable. Like we're talking 9, 10 figures each.
So yes and no. Lyubov, what do you think?
Just maybe to add to what Peter mentioned, that for us it's extremely difficult to identify those few who are really onto something. because there is a lot of noise, and I know I keep receiving those LinkedIn messages that, oh, we're doing something AI, this is my bank details, and I'm exaggerating, but if you call it AI, it doesn't mean that it's actually something valuable and good. So it just gets more and more difficult to identify those who are really building something exciting, something long-term, and something scalable. So yeah, and it is a challenge, especially when you don't have in-depth technical expertise. Like, we don't have it in-house, but yeah, we involve people when we do due diligence. We involve people with various expertise who can help to assess those, which again is not easy at early stage where there is not much to assess. But yeah.
Well, it's certainly hopeful to hear that there are some applicable uses.
Yes.
Certainly. Bella, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm quite bullish on it. I think there's like real value that's being generated from this technology. A lot of the automations that we're seeing, again, not perfect, but I think as the models evolve, more use cases are unlocked, and those use cases get a little bit more robust. So there's a lot of noise, and it can be very difficult to tell, but I think value's there in the software, so it feels less bubbly than maybe some of the other bubbles we've had in the past. Yeah.
All right, guys, that's all we have time for. Thank you for such a good conversation.
Thank you.
Thanks.